Peter Gunnarson's merman, who blew up his cheeks and made a kind of roaring noise before diving, was probably a bladder-nosed seal. The males of that species have a peculiar pad on their heads, which they can inflate at will, and their voice is loud and discordant. The appearance and behavior of Steller's sea ape, described on page 25, can, I think, be attributed to one of the eared seals, the so-called sea lions or sea bears. Anyone who has seen these animals being fed must have noticed how quickly they dive and swim to any part of their pond where they expect food, and how, like a dog chasing a pebble, they keenly watch their keeper's movements and start swimming toward where he seems about to throw a fish, even before he actually does. This behavior can be observed at the zoological gardens in Regent's Park, and even more clearly at the Jardin d'Acclimatation in Paris. It would be entirely consistent with their habits for one of these otaria to dive under a ship and rise to the surface on either side, eagerly watching the people on board in hopes of receiving food, or simply out of curiosity. Seals and their movements account for many mermaid stories. Because of this, all tales of sea women with prominent bosoms were mocked and dismissed, until competent observers recognized in the shape and habits of certain aquatic animals found in the bays and estuaries of the Indian Ocean, the Red Sea, the west coast of Africa, and subtropical America the true origins of these travelers' tales. These animals were, first, the manatee, found in the West Indies, Florida, the Gulf of Mexico, Brazil, and Africa in the River Congo, Senegambia, and the Mozambique Channel. Second, the dugong, or halicore, which ranges along the east coast of Africa, southern Asia, the Bornean Archipelago, and Australia. And third, the rhytina, seen by Steller, the Russian zoologist and voyager, in 1741 on Bering's Island in the Kamchatka Sea. This last is believed to have gone extinct within 27 years of its discovery due to reckless and widespread slaughter. Eventually, science, through a ledger, apologized and, accepting Jack's introduction to his fish-tailed sweetheart, grouped these three animals into a suborder of the animal kingdom called the Sirenia. The name referenced the sirens of classical mythology, who were later depicted as having the upper body of a woman and the lower body of a fish, though originally their lower halves were described as bird-like. It has been difficult to determine to which order the Monadidae are most closely related. In form, they resemble whales and seals. However, whales, cetacea, are entirely carnivorous, whereas the manatee and its relatives eat only plants. Thus, although Dr. J. Gray, following Cuvier, placed them with the cetacea in the British Museum catalogue, other anatomists, such as Professor Agassiz, Professor Owen, and Dr. Murray, consider the similarity to whales to be superficial. Based on their structure and teeth, they believe these animals should either form a separate group or be classed with the pachyderms, like the hippopotamus and tapir, to which they are more closely related, likely linked through now-extinct genera such as Dinotherium and Halotherium. I fully agree with these latter authorities. I see the manatee as a remarkable adaptation of a warm-blooded land animal, modified to live entirely in water, and serving as a bridge between the hippopotamus and elephant on one side, and whales and seals on the other. The Halotherium was a sirenian we know only through its fossil remains found in the Miocene formations of Central and Southern Europe. These remains show it had short hind limbs and thus was closer to land animals than the manatee, rhytina, or dugong, which lack hind limbs altogether. Of the latter two, the dugong and rhytina are more marine in nature than the manatee, though there's a strong similarity among all three. They all have a seal-like cylindrical body, but instead of hind limbs, they have a broad tail flattened horizontally. Their main outward difference lies in tail shape. The manatee's is rounded, the dugong's is whale-like and forked, and the rhytina's is crescent-shaped. The Halotherium's tail seems to have resembled that of a beaver. The manatee's body is broader in proportion to its length and depth compared to the dugong. In a paper read before the Royal Society on July 12, 1821, Sir Everard Home, discussing a manatee sent from Jamaica by the Duke of Manchester, noted that this broader form made the manatee more buoyant and better suited to float in fresh water, since the manatee feeds on plants in the mouths of large rivers, while the dugong grazes in shallows among small eastern islands. In all the Monadidae, the female's mammary glands, greatly enlarged during nursing, are located just beneath the pectoral fins, unlike in whales. These fins or paws are much more flexible and movable than in cetaceans, and are even prehensile enough for the animal to gather food or for a mother to hold her baby close to her chest. Like whales, they are warm-blooded mammals with lungs, requiring them to surface often to breathe. However, they breathe through nostrils at the end of the snout, not a blowhole on top of the head like most whales. This causes them to rise vertically in the water, with head and chest above the surface, and often to remain that way for minutes. In this position, especially while cradling a baby, the female resembles a human woman from the waist up. When disturbed, she dives, revealing her tail and rear body, showing that although there may be some beauty above the waist, she certainly ends in a fish. Thus, the manatee earned names like woman fish in Spanish and Portuguese, manetch or mannequin in Dutch. The dugong, having a bristly snout, is called the baardmanetch, or little bearded man. There are no bristles or whiskers on the manatee's muzzle, so any portraits that include them are incorrect. Some believe the word manatee comes from Spanish, meaning an animal with hands. On Africa's west coast, locals call it nahulu. Older texts call it the sea cow. Gessner illustrated it bellowing, and Mr. Bates, in The Naturalist on the Amazon, compared its voice to that of an ox. Floridian crackers, or mean whites, say the same. Although I've observed it closely in captivity, I've never heard it make a sound, not even a grunt. Mr. Bartlett of the Zoological Gardens tells me his experience is the same. His son, Clarence Bartlett, reported that a young one he kept in Suriname used to make a faint cry or bleat, much like a young seal. That's the only sound he ever heard from a manatee. I believe the dugong to be the animal referred to by Alien as the semi-human whale that inspired the idea of aquatic humans. Firstly, the dugong lives in the sea, while the manatee is mostly found in rivers and freshwater lagoons. Secondly, the dugong matches Alien's description of a creature with a woman's face and prickles instead of hair, whereas the manatee has no stiff bristles. Still, in either case of mistaken identity, distance must lend enchantment to the view, and a sailor must be very imaginative indeed, especially after long months without female companionship, to be seduced by a bristly-faced dugong or mistake a grunting manatee for a beautiful sea maiden singing a love song. Sadly, both dugongs and manatees are being hunted toward extinction. Manatee meat is considered a delicacy. Humboldt compared it to ham. Unlike whale meat, which is dark red, manatee flesh is white like veal and reportedly tastes similar. Remarkably, it stays fresh far longer than other meats, which typically rot in tropical climates within 28 hours. This makes it well suited for pickling, since salt has time to soak in before spoilage. Catholic clergy in South America permit its consumption on fast days, grouping it with whales, seals, and other aquatic mammals under the broad category of fish. The Indians of the Amazon and Orinoco are so fond of it that they'll spend days hunting one, and after a kill, they slice it on the spot, cook the meat on stakes over a large fire, and feast until it's gone. The animal's milk is said to be rich and nutritious. Its skin is prized for its toughness and used widely in the production of leather goods.